Good morning and welcome back to day 3 of the British National Diving Cup of 2023. This morning we bring you action from the women's 10 metre prelim. This afternoon we will also be following up with the final from that event along with the men's 3 metre springboard synchro. So we've got some more action to bring you. Our penultimate day of these championships. I'm Jack Haslam and I will be your commentator throughout the day. Again, we're hoping to bring a few people up to the commentary box this afternoon for the finals as well, so look out for those familiar names. Our girls are now out ready for the parade. Start number 1 from Dive London is Hannah Newbrook. Start number 2, also from Dive London, is Corinne Burrows-Mackley. Start number 3 in her home pool from Edinburgh is Ellen Gillespie. Her teammate also from Edinburgh, Libby Duke. Start number 5 from City of Leeds is Chloe Johnson. Tia McGarry from City of Sheffield is start number 6. Next up we have Elizabeth Powley from City of Leeds in start number 7. And then getting towards the back end of the start list, we have Robin Birch from Dive London. Her teammate Andrea Spendolini-Siriex, also from Dive London. And finishing up the start list in the prelim is Lois Tulson from Leeds. So some very familiar names there. Of course, last year Andrea had an incredible year, winning the European Championships, the Commonwealth Games and the Junior Worlds. So an incredible year for her, well deserving of her Junior Sports Personality of the Year nomination too. We've got some young junior divers in this event too that also had very, very successful years last year. Chloe Johnson being one of them, came 5th at the Junior Worlds and also won a bronze medal at the Junior Europeans. So there's your start list. And let's get ready for the prelims. Judges are in place. As always, big shout out to them and our volunteers for helping us get this event going and along the way. Obviously it wouldn't be possible without them, so as always our gratitude and thanks go out to them. So the women this morning will be doing 5 dives of their choice on the 10 metre. We do actually have a couple of dives down a little bit lower on the boards. Corinne is doing a couple of 5 metre and 7 metre dives. Unfortunately for her, that does mean that she won't be able to go through to the final because we have to just have 10 metre dives through to the final. So our top 8 will be going through to the final, meaning that Corinne, along with one other, will miss out. So it's going to be a little bit of a cruel one for one person, but all of these athletes are going to still have to make sure they're performing this morning to get themselves through to that final later on. Like I said, they will be doing 5 dives. They have to choose from 6 directions. This slightly different to the springboard. They have an arm stand option as well, so the forward, back, reverse, inward, twist and the arm stand. So they get a little bit of choice. They can miss out one of those directions, which sometimes can be quite beneficial if you're not so confident in a certain skill, and that one can be the one that you miss out and choose to do another direction which you're more confident with. We'll again be seeing a little bit of a range of dives, especially in the arm stands. Often we see the arm stand back double somersault with 1.5 twists. We've also got some arm stand forward double somersaults and arm stand back double somersaults in there too. So a little bit of a range there. The hardest list often sees the inward 3.5, the back 2.5 somersaults with 1.5 twists for these girls. So we're expecting to see some good diving, hopefully get the cobwebs off for these girls and ready for the final this afternoon. So Hannah's making a long walk up to that 10-metre platform. Very different event to the springboard that we saw yesterday. Much more daunting up there on the 10 metres. So it looks like Hannah is just about ready. Hannah won the silver medal at the Junior Elites last year. Also represented Team GB at the Junior Europeans too. So clearly doing some really good stuff in the junior meets. Hoping to see that transferred here into the senior stage. She kicks off her list with a forward 3.5 somersaults pike. Often the girls doing a forward starting dive will start with the run up. Just gives them the opportunity to get a little bit more speed and height out of the end of the board than a standing start would do. So our first dive of the women's 10-metre platform. And a good start from Hannah. Makes a very steady entry into the pool there. Just over-rotated very slightly with those legs, which is why you just see the little bit of splash thrown up. But the tension she had in her arms and her core meant she was nice and clean and kept a good line through the water. Next up, Corinne, down into the 7 metres. Corinne, one of only 2 divers in this event that I believe will be also doing the 3 metre. And a good start again from Corinne. Mentioned previously about the running takeoff from Hannah on the forward 3.5 somersaults. Corinne opting for a standing takeoff there on the forward 2.5 somersaults, clearly making that dive easily enough to just do the standing takeoff. So great start there from Corinne. Now Ellen, going with an easier start on the back dive pike, just 1.8 this one. So the execution marks clearly will be very important for her. And very nicely executed from Ellen. Very clean on the water. Going through with very little splash and that great sound as she hits the water. Nice rip sound through the water. Good start there from Ellen. Her teammate also following up with the same dive. Libby doing the back dive and the reverse dive, so obviously with the groups needing to be covered, some of these girls are still young athletes just learning their trade, so not quite yet doing all the full optional list, but a great start there from Libby. Another very tidy entry. The big challenge on the back dive on 10 metres is you're a long way up, you've still got to jump as high as you can and reach all the way over those toes, which when you're flying down 10 metres is quite a hard thing to do. You've got to ensure that you stand it up tall enough to get the control in the dive, which is a real challenge. Now Chloe, mentioned previously about her junior antics. Hoping to see this transfer today in the senior competition. Back 2.5 somersaults half twist. This one's 2.6 degree of difficulty. A lovely start again from Chloe. Very neat and tidy. Great leg line. Sometimes when divers do twists and then repike into a pike shape, it takes a lot of core strength to enable you to get your chest flat on your legs. Chloe showing that she's got that core strength. Very, very good pike shape after her twist. Now Tia, in with 2.5 somersaults pike, up to the 2.8. Tia is someone who's been working full time as well as training. So a real commitment there from Tia. Very smart individual as well. Studied biomedical science, I believe, at university. And a very steady start from Tia there. One thing I love about Tia's in 2.5 pike is she gets great spring out of her ankles off the board. One of the challenges of an in 2.5 pike on 10 metre is making sure that you get enough jump, but also enough speed to get those feet rotating around the board, but not too close. And Tia does that with ease. A little bit left in that finish to get those extra marks. But good start from Tia. Elizabeth Powley, she's doing the same dive. I mentioned previously that Corinne was doing both the 10 metre or the platform and the springboard. Elizabeth is the only senior diver to do both. And a very nice start from Elizabeth. Another one on the takeoff, just ensuring they don't chop the dive down too much. They still ensure that they get enough jump out of the platform to make the dive all the way around. Elizabeth just does just that, and then a very nice clean finish through the water too. Now Robin, one of our most experienced divers, won this event multiple times in the past. It's worth noting as well, the likes of Eden Cheng, who won this event in May, is not here. She is studying over in America now. Robin starts off with an arm stand back, double somersaults, 1.5 twist. And a great start from Robin, a beautiful entry through the water. Yesterday I spoke about divers tending to start with a dive that they're quite comfortable with. A lot of people would avoid the arm stands on the platforms, but Robin's got such a strong handstand. She's so comfortable there. I remember doing a handstand competition with Robin a few years ago, and I was incredibly impressed with how long she can just stand there, no movement whatsoever. So that's clearly why she's so comfortable with the arm stand dive. Now Andrea, our big hitter last year, some incredible results internationally. Forward 3.5 somersaults pike. Great start from Andrea. Absolute cruised round on that dive. Squeezed into a beautiful pike shape. Slightly over-rotated, which is why we're only seeing the 7s, but she still managed to keep that water down. Not much splash being thrown over despite just having those legs coming over from vertical, but great start there from Andrea. Lois, a synchro partner again, after having a little bit of time away from each other. Doing the same dive. Good start from Lois as well. Got good spring, Lois has. She can jump so high. She's so light, she almost floats in the air sometimes. A little bit left in that rip entry from Lois, but again, steady start. Definitely be happy with that one for a prelim competition. I'm sure she'll be hoping for a little bit more later on in the final. So there's our results after the first round. Robin taking the lead, starting with that back arm stand, double somersaults, a little bit higher up on the degree of difficulty with 3.2. Currently, Libby and Ellen tied on 37.8, battling it out for that last final spot. So our next dive is an inward 3.5 somersaults from Hannah. Again, 3.2. It's the highest degree of difficulty we've got in this competition. A lot to like about that from Hannah. I've mentioned earlier with Tia's ankle jump, ankle pop on the start, getting plenty of height out of the board. Hannah's very similar, and she squeezed into a beautiful tuck shape. Knees are nice and tight together. Just let it go a little bit short on the rotation, didn't quite hold on to that tuck shape long enough. So that's why we're just seeing those scores. But a lot of the aerial work was very good. Now Corinne doing the in-between half on 5 metre. This is often seen as the lead up to the dive we've just seen from Hannah. So obviously Corinne being a very junior diver, still only competing in Group B last year. Came third at the Junior Elites in Group B in 2022. Getting that lead up. Good thing about, you could say about that lead up, is the over rotation means that he's clearly making that dive well enough to see it on the 10 metre. Ellen Gillespie up in the ante for herself. It's just the 1.8 in the last round, but now up to the 3.0. Just left that one slightly short of vertical, Ellen. And you're coming round in a forward spinning dive. There's different ways to ensure you know where you are in the air. Some people spot when they're spinning around, they see different parts of the building, whether it be the water, a sign. Some people can feel when their hips are rotating above their head. Ellen unfortunately just came out a little bit too early there. Libby with a reverse dive pike. Again, a beautiful entry from Libby. Just to get those extra marks from the judges, maybe just needs to slightly reach over her toes a little bit more in a pike shape. But her dish and line up, very good, holds her tension through the water, so great rip entry. So even though those difficulty ratings aren't quite as high there from Libby, the execution marks are staying pretty good. Now Chloe. Forward 3.5 somersaults tuck. Interesting going for the standing takeoff again. Very nice dive from Chloe. Forward 3.5 tuck. She pikes out at about triple somersault, takes a look at the water, and then good strong entry through the water too. Now Tia, forward 3.5 somersaults pike. Tia's someone that has done this dive tuck for quite a few years. Now she's upped her degree of difficulty, gone into the pike shape. There or thereabouts there for Tia. I think she'll be relatively happy with that one. Got it all the way around. Pretty accurate on the line-up, upright on the entry. Just like to see a little bit more squeeze in that pike shape. She's so flexible, Tia. She's got every opportunity to make sure her chest is flat on her legs, so that'd just help get a little bit more spin speed in the dive. Sure, her and her coach Tony Alley look pretty happy with that one. Now Elizabeth Powley, back 2.5 somersaults pike. Oh, just a shame. Over pumped that one a little bit. Made the dive very easily. She needed to press those legs out a little bit earlier. Stop that rotation and enable herself to line up upright. Now Robbins following up with the same dive. Sometimes difficult following up a diver who either drops the dive or does the dive really, really well. It can go two ways for in your own head. Yes, it can push you mentally or put an extra bit of pressure on you. Steady there from Robin. Again, a little bit similar to Elizabeth, just needed to be a bit more confident, squeezing those legs out. Didn't quite over-rotate as much, so we still see 6.5, which is not a drop at all from Robin, but I've seen her do that dive with slightly higher execution marks, just putting those legs out a little bit more confidently and then showing a rip entry. Now Andrea in with 3.5 somersaults tuck. One of the dives that we know she can score very highly on, 3.2 degree of difficulty. The equal highest with a back arm stand and back twist dives. Again, very nice from Andrea. She's looking in good shape. She's making these dives really easily. Now developed. Physically changed quite a little bit over the last couple of years, which takes a little bit of time for athletes to get used to. Your body's grown and changed. Your muscles have changed. And you can have a little bit of effort with the proprioception of knowing which part of your body is where. Andrea's clearly now got very used to that after the last couple of years and looking strong and making these dives with ease. Now Lois, reverse 2.5 somersaults tuck. Great dive from Lois. I said before about putting those feet out with a bit of confidence. Lois does that. Kicks her feet out early enough to float around in that nice dish shape and then get a good entry through the water. It's interesting for Lois to do this dive. Makes it so easily. She could almost put another somersault on it, but when you're putting it in with those scores, the risk is probably not quite worth it. So after 2 rounds, Lois takes our lead. Robin just dropping down slightly, so that back 2.5 somersaults pike. Andrea, of course, hot on the heels as well in 3rd position, making a little bit of a gap between 3rd and 4th. Ellen down after that little bit of a drop on forward 3.5. Now Hannah into the 3rd round, back 2.5 somersaults pike. Saw her nail one of these in training, so hoping to see similar. Very, very nearly. That's what I wanted to see on the press out. Confidence, sticking those legs out in a nice tight dish shape. Just didn't reach those arms back quite enough to get the rip entry through the water that I saw earlier on in training. Corinne now on the 7 metre. She'll be doing her last dive on the 10 metre, but the next 2 will be on the 7.5 metre board. Arm stand back double somersaults with tuck. Ooh, just over-rotate a little bit on the arm stand dives. It's really important that you try not to let yourself fall away from the board, because when you do fall, you give yourself that lean, which increases your spin speed, and then it just makes it really hard to control or come out. So if Corinne can just stop that lean a little bit, stand the dive up nice and tall, then she'll be able to get control. Good thing making that dive really, really easily. Just needs to try and have a little bit more control. Then she'll be able to come out and finish the dive off with a nice rip entry. Now Ellen, after her forward 3.5 somersaults in the last round, she does an inward 3.5, so her biggest degree of difficulty dive of the competition. Oh, very nice from Ellen. Again, I really like the tuck shape. Squeezes in nice and tight. Chest and knees, can't see any gap between them. And then nice pointer toes in that tuck shape too. Just left the dive very, very short of very slightly short of vertical. That's why we only see those scores, but a lot of the aerial work again, very, very good. Now Libby, she's up in her degree of difficulty 2.6 here. Back to some sort of half twist. And again, keeping the execution nice and tidy. Back and reverse dive in the first 2 rounds are both with the 6.5, 7 marks. So again, staying around that ballpark, 5.5s and 6 to count there, with the extra bit of the degree of difficulty. Now Chloe, currently in 4th place, was just 17 points behind Andrea in 3rd. Back 2.5 somersaults pike. Oh, girls having a little bit of trouble with their back 2.5s this morning. Not yet to see one completely hit. I did like the come out again. Just didn't look like she really attacked the takeoff enough. If she had had that exact come out with a little bit more speed on the takeoff, then been perfectly upright. Just didn't quite get all the way around in the somersaults. Now Tia with another dive that she's up the degree of difficulty on. Clearly doing some good work with her coach Tony Alley. Back 2.5 somersaults, 1.5 twists. Really good work from Tia. This is a dive that she increased the degree of difficulty from just the half twist not so long back. Then she opted to go back to the half twist because this dive was a little bit of a struggle, but clearly there she's been doing some really good work. Made the dive well. Now Elizabeth, reverse 2.5 somersaults tuck. It's a little bit more like it. Still didn't quite get that entry that she would have wanted. Just left it a bit short of vertical. And she's going to leave herself having a little bit of a battle. I think it's fair to say that 3 metre is probably her strong event. It's impressive that she is able to do both the 10 metre and 3 metre. Most divers tend to specify which one they're going to do and specialise early on, probably towards the end of the junior careers. Robin in with 3.5 somersaults tuck. Just less than 3 points behind Lois after the first 2 rounds. Oh, beautiful dive there from Robin. I think that's the dive of the meet so far. Great to see the change that Robin's made on this dive too. She's piking out there, shows how easy she's making this now. Great rip entry through the water as well. Well deserved 8.5s there from the judges. Great dive from Robin. Now Andrea to follow that one up. You know how good a competitor she is. Normally good dives from other athletes just spur her on to do her better ones. Doesn't phase her whatsoever. So she's going with the back arm stand somersaults. Double somersault, sorry, with 1.5 twist. Again, 3.2 degree of difficulty. It's a very different dive to the in with 3.5, but the same difficulty. And there we go. Like I just said, wasn't phased by the great dive from Robin before. Another 8.5 there, not to count. 2 great dives there, hotting the competition up nicely. Now Lois. Same dive as Andrea. Great dive again from Lois. Since adding this one into her list a few years ago now. Being one of her nice consistent dives. Got good strength. Changed a little bit as well when she first started doing this dive there. Didn't get as much height out of the platform on the arm stand as she perhaps could have done. Looks like she's been doing some good work on that in training. Now able to get a little bit of a jump off those hands, get a bit more height. So there's our scoreboard. Robin with that beautiful inward 3.5, just bumping herself up into lead, giving herself a 10-point cushion on Lois. Very close between Lois and Andrea. And Elizabeth in our last spot to not quite currently make it through to the final. Ellen just pipping her by 4 points. Corinne, of course, can't make it through to the final with the dives being on 5 and 7 metre in her list. So, nevertheless, it's great experience for her, such a young diver, to be in this event with some very experienced senior divers. Hannah with a reverse 2.5 somersaults tuck. Very nice through the water, despite being slightly short of vertical. A great tension and good handwork on the water to make sure the water didn't splash up too much. Goes through with a nice rip sound. So we're only seeing the 5.5 just because of that slightly short entry. Great skill to be able to hold the water down even when you're not upright. Corinne back on the 7 metre. The last dive before she jumps up to the top board. I'll show you that 7 metre still plenty high enough for me. Back 2.5 from the 7 metre. That's a 2.8 from Corinne. Again, a lot of good aerial work, great tuck shape. Some work left in the takeoffs just to ensure that she gives herself enough chance to get control of where she is in the air. Hopefully they'll just give her a bit of more awareness and know exactly when to come out, which is one of the challenges that all divers face. You can get a beautiful takeoff, but if you're not quite aware of where you are in the air, it's easy to come out at the wrong place. Now Ellen. Different arm stand dive this time. The forward double somersaults in pike. A little bit lower on the degree of difficulty. It's 2.4. But again, very steady execution from Ellen. Her inward 3.5 in the last round was very nicely executed. Just left it slightly short of vertical. That one perfectly upright. Need a little bit more rip entry through the water just to get those bigger scores, but very steady dive. Her teammate following up with the same dive. 42 points to beat then Ellen. Sorry, Libby. 42 points from Ellen to beat. Good controlled press to the handstand from Libby. It's important that when the divers are doing the handstands, they show the judges that they're comfortable, maybe a couple of seconds balance, and then off their hands into the dive. So beautiful entry as well from Libby. Just pips her teammate by 8 points with a 50.4 score there. Puts her in front of her in the overall rankings too. Now Chloe, junior European bronze medalist in 2.5 somersaults pike. I mentioned earlier on in the competition about the challenge of making sure on this dive that you're brave enough to jump on the takeoff rather than just chop the dive down. It's one of the dives where your feet come really close to the board, so it can be very scary. And hitting that board is obviously something that divers do not want to do. Tia McGarry, reverse 2.5 somersaults top. Dropping her DD a little bit from the last round. 3.2 compared to this one, which is a 2.8. But that's the best executed dive she's done so far today. I mentioned about kicking your feet out with confidence. Tia does just that. Very early out on that dish shape. Has to have a little bit of an arch just to get it all the way round, which is why the judges have probably penalised her a little bit. Keeping that tummy tight in a dish shape will just ensure that they give you the extra little bits of marks. Now Elizabeth, forward 2.5 somersaults, 1 twist pike. We saw this dive quite a bit yesterday on the 3 metre. The execution is normally quite different to what we see on the 10 metre. Good dive there from Elizabeth. So you may notice that she does the twist first before then squeezing into the somersaults, whereas on the 3 metre you often see the somersaults done first. So that one is normally referred to as the full in, compared to on the 3 metre when it's done after the twist is done after the somersaults, which is the full out. Now Robin. Beautiful dive in the last round. 80 points on the inward 3.5 somersaults tuck. One of the easiest that I've ever seen her make it as well over the last few years, so that's also great to see. And again, beautiful dive with Robin, really on form. She's always been capable of the rip entries like that and the one that we saw on the inward 3.5, but the consistency throughout them hasn't always been there. Today we've seen both the inward and the front absolutely disappearing through the water, so great to see from Robin. Now Andrea followed up in the last round with a very strong dive. Not quite got the degree of difficulty here, but this is one that she can really show her execution of. Oh, wow. Wow. Beautiful dive from Andrea. Not much to say about that one. Let the dive itself do the talking. 9s there from the judges. Not got one to count yet, but 8.5 to count. Great score there from Andrea. Really on form. Great competition so far, really hotting up. Now Lois with her in with 3.5. Oh, that's a shame from Lois. I nearly said before the dive that this is usually one that I'm pretty confident that Lois is going to do well. She makes it really easily. She comes out through a pike shape and normally gets a great lineup on it. Bit of a shame that time. She just didn't quite get her hips out straight enough, so just over-rotated, continued with that rotation in the pike out. So a little bit of a shame there from Lois, but luckily for her, it's just the prelim, so as long as she can get herself through to that final, which she's looking currently like she's going to cruise through there. Robin, again, extending her lead a little bit at the top. Currently we've got a bit of a battle for that last spot into the final between Ellen and Elizabeth. Libby's just stretched away a little bit, so has a bit of a comfort blanket coming into this last round. Quite a common thing for divers to do is to put a dive at the end of their list that they're quite confident they can score highly on, just so they know that if they're within a shout of a position or a score that they want to get, And they've got a confident dive to finish off. Hannah finishes off with her back 2.5 somersaults with 1.5 twist pike. 3.2 degree of difficulty, which is the highest equal to her with 3.5 somersaults tuck. $249 there from Hannah. Scores that have won this event last year, or in the last couple of years, have been 300, around the 300 mark, 300 plus. Eden won it in May with 318 points. Lois won it with 358 points, although she did dive as a guest in February just due to doing one of the dives on 5 metre. Corinne with a great dive to finish off. Up on the 10 metre there. A good sound as she hit the water. That clap or rip sound as her hands connect. A great experience for her. You can go back to the junior meets, learn a trade, and then hopefully keep returning to this senior competition and develop and show what she's made of here too. Ellen finishing up with a different twisting dive. Again, the full in, the forward 2.5 somersaults, 1 twist. A little bit lower on the degree of difficulty, 2.9 compared to the back twist, which is 3.2. Now Libby finishes off with a slightly easier dive at 2.3 of the forward 2.5 somersaults pike. She is opting for a standing takeoff. And again, beautiful dive from Libby. Been really impressed with her this morning. Her entries have been great through the water. She's got a great body line as she hits the water, which just allows you to go through with hardly any splash. So despite her degree of difficulty not quite being up as high as some of the girls, their execution marks have been excellent. So as she grows and develops, she can start to increase the difficulty and hopefully keep that same execution. So great dive there from Libby. Chloe with a reverse 2.5 somersaults tuck. Oh, nearly there from Chloe again. I can see why she finishes off with this dive, because it's got the potential to score highly. She kicks out with a really nice dish shape. You can see divers doing their drills in dry land. You can go through the body positions that will be replicated in the actual dives. So clearly got the strength and technique to do that in the dive, just unfortunately over-rotated slightly, so not going to get the scores that she wanted to. But she will most likely be through to the final later on, so she'll get another chance to show that off there. Now Tia finishes off with a back 2.5 somersaults pike. Good dive again from Tia. Really attacked that start. Big jump out of the platform and put her feet out very confidently. And then lined up. She looks pretty happy with that list. I think she'll be pretty happy with that list. And Coach Tony looks pretty happy with that list. So, great morning from Tia. Now Elizabeth. In a little battle for that last spot. I think she'll have done enough there. Just left it slightly short of vertical, but kept the water down really, really well. Had good tension in her arms and her core to ensure that the water doesn't hit her. She goes through the water and keeps it down. So yeah, she jumps just above Ellen by 9 points. Now Robin, been very impressive this morning. Inward 3.5 in the third round, forward 3.5 in the last round. Got some 9s on there as well. Great diving from her. She finishing off her competition just as well. Yep, very good again from Robin. Not quite the same rip entry as her forward and her inward. But a very steady dive again. 339 points in a prelim is a very, very good score from Robin. That would have won the event last May. Andrea won the European Championships with a score of 333. So really does show how good that score is this morning from Robin. Andrea did go a huge score in the Commonwealth Games, 357.5. And that's why we saw exactly the same type of dive in the final round at the Commonwealth Games. Absolutely disappeared on that dive. 9.5 there in from the judges. Great to see the judges giving the scores out. Doesn't count, unfortunately, but getting a 9.5 is definitely something that'll hopefully give her a bit of confidence, and we'll see some more this afternoon. Now our last diver of this morning's event. Third back twisting dive in a row. That's much more like it from Lewis. A slightly uncharacteristic drop on it, inward 3.5 in the last round. But good recovery there. Just again, a little bit left in her entries, but this morning is about getting through to that final. 297 points. Mentioned 300 mark being a good aim for these girls in this morning's prelim. So good to see some great diving there from the girls. Andrea's just ended up pipping Robin for that top spot after the beautiful back twist dive to finish. So there you can see your final results. Andrea in that top spot with a score of 345, which is a huge score for a morning prelim. Like I mentioned previously, we've seen scores less than that win this Nationals in previous years. So like I said yesterday with the boys, the standard of British diving is looking so strong. There's multiple people in all events that are able to go to international events and challenge for medals. Lois in the third position. Our last finalist will be Elizabeth, just pipping Ellen to that last spot. Corinne, of course, couldn't have finaled anyway with the dives on 5 metre and 7 metre. You have to have a full 10 metre list to enable you to go through to the final. So that's this morning's women's 10 metre prelim concluded. Some great diving there. Saw some 9s, 9.5s. And hopefully we'll see many more of those this afternoon. So we will be back with the women's 10 metre platform final and the men's 3 metre synchro later on. Hope you rejoin us at 3:45.